So we are going to review how to read vernier calipers. These are metric, so all of this will be in millimeters and centimeters. These are more precise than rulers because you are actually measuring in tenths of a millimeter instead of just millimeters. So these are preferred for when we do calculations of angle of impact. When you look at the parts of a caliper, you have the base ruler here, and then you have the slider. And the slider portion is where you're going to spend most of your time focusing on what is going to be your measurements. We are going to be focusing on the outside measurements, so you're going to be looking at the top bar of this particular slider. So if I were to take an object, I'm going to gently pinch until I've encased the entire object, and then you can remove the object or you can keep it in there, that is your preference. And then at this point you don't have to do anything else with the calipers. In order to get an accurate measurement, the first thing you're going to look at is your base number. Your base number is where this 0 on the outside bar of the slider is lined up on the main base ruler. So if I look, this 0 is lined up in between 21 and 22 millimeters. That means that the measurement is going to be 21 point something. So the next part of how to read calipers is looking for where your decimal is. And this is where you're going to pay special close attention to these hash marks up at the top. So on the outside slider bar, you'll notice 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, etc. You're going to look at these hash marks, and you're going to find the one that is lined up with a line on the base ruler below it. In this case, I'm looking and I see 0.5 seems to be the hash mark that is lined up directly with one of the lines below it. That indicates to me that this reading would be 21.5 millimeters. When you go to do the decimal, it is not important what the number is on the base ruler. That is only important when you find the base number when you line up with your 0. The decimal is just indicated by which line is perfectly lined up. If I were to change it as such, and the 0 is lined up with the 21 for my base number, this particular example indicates that this is 21.0. You know you have a whole number when the 0 and the 1.0 are both perfectly lined up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use calipers to measure length and width of a blood drop. When you measure a blood drop, you're only concerned with the major part of the spatter. You will not be taking into account the tail. So the first thing I will do is I will measure the length. I'll take my calipers. I'm going to line them up. Now that was a little difficult because the calipers tend to wobble. So a trick I like to do is if I flip the calipers over, it's nice and flat, and all I have to do is move the slider. So again, I line it up, and that gives me the measurement I need. Now all I have to do is read my pair of calipers. So the length is going to be represented by this particular number. So again, we look at the base number, and I see that it's 11, 12, 13. It's in between 13 and 14, so I know it's going to be 13 point something. So then I look at my hash marks, and I figure out which one is exactly lined up. And to me, it looks like 0.4 is the winner. So it's 13.4 millimeters. So our length will be written down as 13.4. I can take the same drop, line up one side, move the slider to the other. The width is obviously going to be much more narrow than the length. So I look at my base number and it looks in between 2 and 3. Find my hash mark. Looks like it's 2.9. I would write those down and then I would calculate my R value.